this session, and we'll invite the chime to sing as a way of calling our attention to this practice, really coming into it. I'm going to read for you a sentiment of metta, of loving kindness, as a way of setting the intention, and then we're going to go right into the teaching. Included for today is a practice for the cultivation of openness, and then I'm going to tell you a story from the book. All right, let's begin. Welcome, everyone. This is SatiSeva, which is a beautiful complementary affinity group associated with Recovery Dharma. SatiSeva is 16 mindfulness practices as a way of understanding habit energy as being universal. SatiSeva is an environment, a gathering where anybody who is curious about recovering their whole selves and their true selves home away from negative habit energy is welcome. That means people on a traditional recovery journey, family members, friends, professionals, all are welcome here. This is a new painting. The sentiment of metta for this one reads, "May I hold sacred all my moments. May I hold sacred all my moments." Easier said than done. And one of the things that's important to say is let's begin our practice by dissecting this sentiment just ever so slightly and call our gaze toward the word sacred. That word is all encompassing, which means in the spaciousness of the sacred, nothing is excluded. The horror, the grief, the misery and confusion is there right beside the birth, the possibility, the bliss, the joy, the renunciation, relief, and so on. To be in the presence of something sacred is to be in the presence of something limitless. And so what we are here to do is to cultivate eyes to see this, to nurture a heart to stay open to this, and to work with the mind, train the mind, concentrate the mind, to not be so persuaded by, controlled by, dictated by habitual patterns of thinking and storytelling. So all of your moments, whether they're positive moments, negative moments, or neutral moments, may you come into their presence and recognize that there's something sacred there. And even if the only thing you can identify is yourself, isn't that a great thought? Like, this whole situation is really crummy, but I can bring myself to this situation and I am a sacred being. You can bring your sacredness to the moment. And that's a beautiful thing. Today in our SatiSeva practice, we are exploring the second chapter, which is the mindfulness practice of openness. And I'd like to begin our session today with a practice that is found on page 51. And then I'd like to share a story. I'll read a story from this chapter that happened in my life that was such a pivotal and poignant moment, teaching me about openness and teaching me to recognize the icky and the awe of a situation. And in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to hold in one hand the icky and in the other hand the awe, and to bring the hands together at the level of the heart and to recognize, okay, sacred moment, I can be here for this. We have to create an open spaciousness in the mind, in the body, and in the spirit. So, if you're following along, jump on to page 51 and let's begin. Take a moment and put your body in a noble posture. Give yourself a moment to contemplate what does noble mean to you, and allow your body to guide you. Let your body take the lead here. It knows what it means to be noble. And so just follow your body and anchor into it. Take some deep breaths. Roll your shoulders and scan your body for any tension as you're settling in here. And then turn your gaze inward. So these are the 4 main instructions on how to prepare the body. Noble posture, concentrate the mind on the breath, roll the shoulders, move your spine a little bit, maybe your neck, whatever you need to do to shift any angst that might be settled in the body, and then turn the gaze inward. I'd like to add something here because it's coming alive for me in this moment. And that is, the body doesn't always have access to stillness. Given the conditions of our lives, we can't always be still for whatever reason. And there's no need to resist this. So if your mind, body, spirit, if that sacred trinity is not engaged with stillness, invite it to be perfect. And move your body as you listen to this meditation and practice. That's your body in this moment. And that's okay. Invite it to be okay. That's you in this moment. And you are meeting you as you are, as this is. And that is perfect in my mind. So enjoy being here for a moment in stillness or in movement. And then together we're going to breathe a cycle of in-breath and out-breath using mantras that I really like. And I'm going to repeat this 3 times. And while I'm reading this from the book, if something else, a different mantra is coming up for you, go with that. That's your wisdom speaking your body, your spirit. And it is worth trusting. It is worth going for it. These mantras are what were alive for me, but they are by no means anyone else's guide unless it resonates with you. The point is, trust your knowing. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out, to open and see myself clearly. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out to see myself in the fullness of human and spiritual being. That's it. These 2 cycles of in breath and out breath. We're going to do this 2 more times. But isn't that lovely? We just take a minute to create space. We take a moment to see ourselves clearly. And we take a moment to remember in this spacious openness that we are more than our pettiness, our habit energy, our repetitive thinking, our unskillfulness, and so forth. We are part of a divine unfolding, a mystery that's worth recognizing and celebrating. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out to be open and see myself clearly. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out to see myself in the fullness of human and spiritual being. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out to open and see myself clearly. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out to see myself in the fullness of human and spiritual being. Hmm. Give the lungs plenty of air to breathe. Now, imagine yourself in a wide open space. What does that look like for you? Allow yourself a 360-degree view. Allow the environment you see to have wild and tame aspects. Allow a whisper on the winds to reach your ears saying, would you look at that? Oh, and that, and that, and that. Remember, you are safe. Feel free to look deeply. Notice everything. Give the body ample room to move if it needs to stretch. Look around and observe with gentle curiosity. This, my friends, is a practice of cultivating openness, using a landscape. Put your body in that wide open space and see what you see. Let's just take a few moments of silence to enjoy this practice. Friends, as you become more practiced, add an emotion to work with. I recommend starting with simple and easy feelings like fatigue or contentment. What does your imagination conjure that best reflects your sacred world? Now, this next part isn't in the book, but I just want to remind you that what we've been talking about this month and for the last few sessions, discussing openness, is using nature to mirror and symbolize certain emotions. So, for instance, I've talked about anxiety being dry. I've talked about resentment feeling like an arid place. Anxiety is more like tightness. Sorry. It's more like being in a cramped, claustrophobic space. Depression for me feels like a deep, heavy weight, like somehow I'm being pressed and smashed and compressed. And so I look at the natural world, and when I feel a certain feeling, I just look at that environment and I think, what could I do to amend that environment? So, for example, when I feel resentment and it's dry and it's prickly and it's harsh, I imagine watering a desert plant. And then I notice the flourishing that happens there. And so I take it into myself and I give my resentment feelings and the stories that I'm telling around that emotion some water. I drink herbal teas. I take really aromatic baths. I immerse myself in the nurturance of water. And so, using the natural world and being open to exploring that when working with deep, difficult emotions is incredibly beneficial. So, these landscapes become your sacred world. So, I'll ask the question again. What does your imagination conjure that best reflects your sacred world? Let that become an instrument of peace to guide you. Stay curious, stay open, then surprise. Being surprised embraces the unknown as a sense of wonder rather than a cause for disappointment, bewilderment, or fear. Surprises are opportunities to shift our attention and hush habitual reactions. I recall countless times throughout my life when I expected something to happen and was surprised when it didn't. Sometimes the surprise was pleasant, but not always. I had to practice how to find the secrets waiting to be revealed. One time, I was flying from my farm in eastern Washington to the Midwest with my 3 kids. One of our flights was delayed, which meant we had to run to our next gate to make our connecting flight. We could hear final boarding call for, followed by our names over the intercom. No one had time to pee, which is a big deal for a mama with 3 little kids. We ran our hearts out. We arrived at the departing gate with a vacant lobby and locked doors. The plane was parked with the jetway still attached. We pounded on the door, but no one answered. We missed our connection by 6 minutes, the maximum wait time. A tsunami of feelings flooded that empty waiting area. My kids were freaked out, worried that they were not going to see their dad and our family. They feared that missing the flight meant we would have to turn around and go home. Meanwhile, I was thinking about the hassle of rebooking a new flight and the hours of downtime waiting in the airport with 3 kids to entertain. Then I remembered that I am a practitioner. I knew the first thing I needed to do was breathe. After only a few moments, an airline employee appeared at the desk in what I perceived as a defensive posture. She seemed braced to defend the airline's policy and take whatever incredulousness I might project as I explained what happened. The first surprise was her kindness and genuine attempts to be accommodating. Finding a comparable connecting flight similar to the one now pulling away was going to be a challenge. She offered a red-eye overnight flight with the added bonus of waiting in the airport for the next several hours. Imagine that combined with the restlessness of three children tucked in coach all night long. What a blast. I could feel my anger and temperature rising. Hard pass. I took a deep breath. I wanted her to see me taking time to pause. I said calmly, I am feeling incredibly angry. I am not upset with you. I recognize you are trying to help me. I am simply frustrated and feel powerless that this happened. I need a moment to collect myself. The look on this woman's face softened instantly. Her defenses came down and she thanked me for being considerate. I thought, how many unpracticed people must she encounter on a regular basis? The least I can do is keep my emotions in check and not project them in unskillful, harmful ways. Together, we got creative. I had this sneaky suspicion that missing our connection meant some surprise was waiting for us. The booking agent suggested a completely different flight to a totally new destination. Instead of flying into Tulsa as planned, we would fly to Kansas City and stay with family. That meant that we would rent a car and drive through Lawrence, Kansas, the place where my husband and I first met and married. Surprise! This unexpected detour meant we would be able to show our children our favorite places. Suddenly, a whole new opportunity to slow down and enjoy some sights opened up in a delightful way. The kids and I waited for an hour for our new flight, and the adventure continued with joy and ease. Openness possesses a welcoming energy, capable of redirecting habit energy. Cultivating a spirit of surprise means looking at our patterns and routines with gentle curiosity and patience rather than scorn or judgment. We all have certain ways of doing things, and we all harbor particular expectations and reactions. There is nothing inherently wrong with that. Being open, however, affords you the courtesy to loosen your grip on the need to control everything. I want you to know that I have an inner voice that likes to insist on this narrative. I'm totally flexible. No matter what happens, I have no expectations. I'm totally go with the flow. This is actually true. And I'm exactly like this, except in all the moments when I'm not. An instrument of peace that helps me reconcile the sacred paradoxes within is this simple mantra. That's true and not the whole truth. When I entertain my inner voice insisting, I am so easy going, I remind myself that's true and not the whole truth. The truth is, as flexible as I can be, I can also be rather rigid. I find comfort in having certain things a specific way. I do not require everything mapped out and predictable, but there are things I prefer just so. The fun and the surprise comes from catching myself in some fixed thought or habit, like when one of my kids loads the dishwasher differently than I would. It looks wrong, which makes me feel like something is wrong. It is not loaded in the way I would do it. Then I catch myself and ask, is it wrong or simply different? The humbling part is realizing how often they do things better than me. This may seem trivial, but when you add up these seemingly insignificant things, you'll get an idea of how much control you demand on any given day. So, two things there. maybe three. The first is things not going the way you want them to, or thought they would, or think they should, or expected them to. Okay, that's an inconvenience. That's true. What else is true? Is there some surprise? That's the second thing. Is there some surprise trying to vie for your attention, but you won't be able to see it because the patterns of habitual reactivity are front and center? So, by taking a moment to just look at the situation, cultivate that observer, take a couple steps back so that you can see everything with more clarity, more space, more openness. Something else might catch your attention, something you never even thought about. That's the surprise. That's the flexibility. The third thing here is kind of bringing in a little bit. I don't say it clearly in this section, or I don't say it directly in this section, but it really speaks to the cultivation of ambivalence, which is something that we're going to practice a couple of chapters down the road. And ambivalence is not apathy, which we'll get into a lot of detail when we get to that chapter. Ambivalence is a practice, it's a way of being that reminds us, that speaks to that part of me. Let me put this into first person. When I'm cultivating some ambivalence, I'm speaking to that part of me that's really tight around control. No, it's got to be this way. I thought it through and I expected it and I imagined it. And it's something else, and I don't like that something else. Ambivalence steps in and is a little bit like, yeah, what are you going to do, Julia? You don't get to control the weather. And what if it's still going to be okay? Like, what if you sat with this situation and really started to concentrate your energy toward, we can work with this. Yeah, yeah, I can do this. Hmm. It sure feels different than kind of having my hands gripping the wheel, like, no, I'm steering it this way. So when I'm ambivalent, it's kind of like a step toward more openness. I can be like, oh, yeah, there I go again, being controlling. Okay. What else is here? That's true. I wanted it this way. I thought it should be this way. Yeah, that's true. And what else is true? And that is what allows me to turn the key and open up. Notice my shoulders all curved in tight. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Life is in charge. Got it. I can't control the weather. I can't control the flights. I can't control other people. I can't even control the emotional arisings. I can't control the thoughts that just come up and tempt me and sweep me away. But I can take a step back and look, pause, breathe, open, see clearly. That's what I can do. So let's spend a few moments of just quiet to integrate this so you can hear your own inner song, your own inner wisdom. And let's come back to that breathing mantra again, just breathing in. I create space. Breathing out to open and see myself clearly. Enjoy what you notice in this beautiful practice of openness. And have some announcements and then a dedication. Today, one of the last share of our community was this wonderful reflection of a Sangha member taking stock, which, by the way, is an instrument of peace in the SatiSeva practices. And it's a practice by which we look at ourselves and we take and our lives and we basically just take stock, good, bad, neutral. And what's fascinating about the taking stock practice is how habituated one can be. I'll put this into first person, how habituated I have been in my life to take stock of all of my flaws, all of the things that I don't measure up to, all of my insecurities, all of my doubts, all of my anxieties, all of my. And I forget that there's this other side where I have this capacity for generosity and presence. I have a real ability to sit with people who are grieving. Um, I have so many positive qualities, but I forget to take stock of them. I forget to include them into the formula that makes and presents the whole of me. And one of the things that I love about mindfulness and Buddhist practices, sati, present time awareness, is the invitation to take stock of everything, the good, the bad, the neutral. All of it together makes the whole of me, makes the whole of a situation. And it reveals to me where my habit energy resides in terms of where I have this pattern of concentrating my attention just in this one narrow groove. And I totally ignore that there's this whole thing, this whole experience that I could open up to. If I simply bothered to lift my head, roll my shoulders open, and look around and take stock of all of it, give it voice, share it with somebody else. This is why community sharing is so important and so impeccable. We get to hear from other people. We give people opportunities to be brave, to be strong, to be vulnerable and courageous, to bear witness, and to realize, wow, I am not alone. There's an author by the name of Jeff Brown, and he coined a word that I really like. It's the word realize, but he spells it differently. He spells it the word real, REAL dash eyes, EYES. To realize is to have real eyes. And I really love that. And when we cultivate openness, that's what we're going for. That's what happens. We nurture our real eyes to see everything clearly, to go beyond the judgments, to go beyond the expectations, and to simply be with whatever is arising. I'd like to end our practice today with this bit of awareness. So we're ending our month of March for the SatiSeva gatherings. We'll continue to talk about openness in April, but for now, I'd like to end on the awareness of the spring equinox, which is coming on Saturday. And this is a time of year that the ancients celebrated because it was as people who were so much more in rhythm with the cycles of day and night of their relationship to Mother Earth. They noticed how at the equinoxes in the spring and in the fall, daytime hours and nighttime hours were the same. And that indicated at different times of the year, depending upon the hemisphere in which these people lived. In the spring in the northern hemisphere, that means that we're turning toward the sun. The days are going to be increasing and the nights are going to be shrinking. And so this was a very energetic time of year. And what that means for us as human beings in a contemporary world is this. Now is the time. We can really use the energy of our natural surroundings. we can connect to it in new ways. We heard a Sangha member mention today a gentle reminder of putting the toesies in the grass. Yes, touch nature with your own nature. It is an incredible source of healing and openness. This is a time of year of possibility, potentiality, creativity, imagination. It is a time of fertility and growth. So, this is a great time to notice what parts are still in a contracted state, full of resistance and aversion. And rather than judge it as, oh no, I'm doing something wrong, just remember that there are seeds that are sown this time of year, and they too are in a contracted state. They're armored. The nugget of life is well guarded and protected in that seed, and it is simply awaiting the conditions for its own softening, ripening, and growth. So if you are experiencing a contracted state, just imagine yourself as a seed awaiting the conditions for your own softening, opening, ripening, growing state. But you can't come into that awareness if you don't have eyes to see, if you don't nurture the quality of openness in your life and space, and if you don't spend some time in nature as a mirror for your own nature. Here's a beautiful mantra. I go to nature to see myself. That just came to me, and that makes me very happy. I go to nature to see myself, of course. And may I hold sacred all my moments, friends. And before we end our practice today with a dedication of merit, may I just remind you all that at 1:00 today, we meet for Recovery Dharma. We're going to be talking about Shantideva's wisdom and cultivating concentration. Lowe's shared in the chat the link to Soul Center so you can see our Recovery Dharma practices. And we meet for SatiSeva now 4 times a month, the first and third Sunday and Wednesday at the same time, 11:00 to 12:30. And we'll continue our conversation on openness. Check out our recordings, check out Spotify, YouTube. Check out our wonderful events happening at Soul Center, all the tokens of mindfulness. Email me with any thoughts, questions, concerns. And let's come back to a noble posture and breathe in space. And let's take this particular breath with a little more concentration along the side of the body. Maybe even gently stroke with the backs of your fingers, just gently touch the sides of your body as you inhale and feel your rib cage expand. Exhale and feel the belly contract. And just come into the awareness that the breath is a great signal that it's normal and natural to experience times in our lives of great expansion and contraction. We need both to be whole. So breathe in and expand. I create space. Breathe out and allow the body to contract a little, very gently. And in that contraction, think of it as concentration, to be open and see myself clearly. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out to take stock, to notice, to have real eyes. Breathing in, I create space. Breathing out, to be open. In this noble posture, friends, take a moment, hands together at the level of the heart, and with a slight bow, we honor the sacredness in each of us. Peacemakers. Thank you, friends. Thank you so much. Namaste.